Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Danielle. As she mentioned, my name is Marina Garcia, and I'm a Senior Project Manager with the Center by Lendistry. Thank you all again for joining today's webinar on the Los Angeles County Rent Relief Program. We here at the Center by Lendistry, we are assisting LA County and committing to ensuring that all communities have opportunities to close the racial wealth gap by investing in small businesses as well as the communities in which they operate in. We do that work here at the center by providing assistance through education, technical assistance, and access to capital. As I mentioned, we have partnered with LA County to administer the Los Angeles County Rent Relief Program that has been created to assist landlords with rental arrears. Specifically for their tenants that may have had difficulties during COVID-19 and unable to pay rent. So with that being said, I will be sharing my screen. We'll go through a couple of items here today. First will be an overview of the program. Then we will go into the eligibility criteria as well as the prioritization that has been put in place for this program. We'll go through documentation that is required for the application, and then of course we will get into questions. I know that there will be the chat features enabled here for any questions that may come up, so we will address those at the end. So with that being said, I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. It says Los Angeles County Rent Relief Program. I will go ahead and get into it. We'll click here. So overview on the program. Essentially, what is this program about? Who does it serve? And what are the details behind it? Essentially, it is for landlords that are located in Los Angeles County, except for the city of Los Angeles. This program will be providing direct financial assistance to those qualified landlords who are in situations where their tenants were unable to pay their rent. Qualified applicants can receive a maximum of $30,000 per rental unit. The grant awards may be used to cover eligible expenses, which are one, the rental arrears, so any rental debt that has incurred from April 1st of 2022, as well as any eligible expenses, for example, utilities, and we'll get into the details on what these eligible expenses are, but those two buckets are eligible under this program. So first, as far as who is eligible for the program, really there's three main criteria on who is eligible for this program. It's any landlord who owns a rental property located in LA County, except for the city of Los Angeles. So I know there was just a quick question here as far as does this exclude the city of Los Angeles? Yes. Another eligibility criteria is that the unit must still be occupied by the impacted tenant. And there is documentation that is required to show that the unit is still, or the tenant that has been impacted is still residing in that particular unit. And then the rental debt due to the impacts of COVID-19 incurred or from the pandemic for the period of April 1st, 2022 to current, so to the current month of January 2024. This program does have a prioritization in place. Essentially, the prioritization means that if an applicant or a landlord meets these criteria, their application will be prioritized and reviewed immediately. So there are a couple of criteria here for the prioritization piece. First, you'll see on the left side here is that the landlord or tenant income is at or below 80% of area median income. So there's a couple things within this. first, if you've gone to the application, you'll be able to see a chart that shows what 80% really means as far as figures for family size within that section. For income, the landlord should be able to provide that income. In the event landlord does not provide the income, the tenant income can be used for this prioritization criteria. Another criteria for prioritization is that the affected unit is located in the high and highest needs census tracts of the COVID-19 Vulnerability Index. There is also a link on the program website as well as the application where you can go to this index, plug in the rental property address, and it'll determine if it's in the high or highest need. So you'll be able to see if the property is located there. The grant relief fully satisfies tenant debt for the eligible period. And then lastly, the landlord is a small mom or pop landlord owning no more than 4 rental units. So this is prioritization only. If the landlord does not meet one of these, this does not mean you're not eligible. It just means that you will not hit the prioritization criteria. But if you meet the criteria that's on the previous slide, we strongly recommend you apply. The next couple of sections we'll get into is the required documentation. So within the application, there are a few sections where you will need to upload documentation to prove these items that you see listed here on this slide. So the next couple of slides, we will get into some examples of that documentation. It is not a full list of documentation we outlined here. However, on the program website, there is a link to the program and application guide that outlines more of a comprehensive list where you'll see all of the documents that can be provided. So first we'll go into proof of identity. A couple examples here for documentation to upload with your application. Government issued photo ID, for example, driver's license or birth certificate can be uploaded. Social Security card. Again, this is just a couple examples. On the website, there is a full list of quite a few example documents that can be provided for the proof of identity. Next is proof of income. So a couple examples here for proof of income can be tax returns, either 2021 to present. Also, W-2 forms can be utilized, pay stubs, and then of course the website does have a full list of other examples, but here are just a couple of examples just right off the bat. Proof of ownership, which is really important for this application, is to show that the landlord does own the rental unit of which they're submitting the application for. So some of the examples of documentation to prove ownership is the deed, so the property deed showing the applicant's name, and of course with that unit address. Title insurance policy is another one, property tax statements. So there's a couple examples here on proof of ownership. And as far as proving that the impacted tenant is still currently in that unit, there's documentation would need to be uploaded to prove that piece. So a couple of examples, this can be a current signed lease agreement, any other written agreement, copies of canceled checks or bank statements, or showing proof that rent was paid for that particular unit that is outlined in or that is included for the application. Form of proof of the rent that is owed. So because this program is designed for rental arrears and to help with that, we'll need to know how the amount of rent that is owed. And this will need to be provided in documentation such as a rent ledger, current rent due statement, any prior eviction notices, and again, please visit the website to see a full list of other documents that can be provided for this piece. Proof of outstanding eligible expenses. So not only is this for the rental arrears, but should there be eligible expenses such as utilities that have gone past due for that same time period as a result of the tenant unable to pay the rental arrears, which affected some of the utilities that are covered within that rental agreement, that can be included in the application. So documentation will need to also be provided for that. We'll ask for, or what can be provided is the current utility bill, landscaping services, or any fees passed on to the tenant as part of the lease agreement for those rent payments that were not paid. Any upkeep, maintenance costs for amenities that are included in the lease. And then, of course, any late fees incurred as a result of the landlord or the applicant not able to make those payments. Okay, so those were a couple examples of each section where documentation is required. As you're going through the application process, there are a couple of notes wanted to note here for the program is throughout the application, there is an attestation or a few attestations here. First is going back to that prioritization of being a mom and pop landlord, which would be a lawful owner of 4 or fewer units. So if that does apply, we would ask for an attestation there. Acceptance of the full rental debt for the eligible time period. So if awarded, that would satisfy the rental debt. And then any prior rental or mortgage relief assistance received from these few programs listed here. If assistance has been received from these programs, that does not disqualify you. We would need to know the amount so that we can subtract it from any rental award amounts. That way it's recorded here. Okay. Another important piece to call out here is one application per unit. So in the event the applicant or the landlord owns multiple units of which there is rental arrears, there would need to be one application per unit. Submitting multiple applications for the same unit, it will delay the review of the application. So we ask that one application per rental unit. Also, the landlord and the tenant cannot be the same person. So wanted to make sure that I called that out. Important piece here, as we know with this application, there is quite a few documents that are uploaded and also information that's submitted as far as answering the questions. All personal identification information is protected, is confidential. It really is treated with its confidentiality to make sure that all information here is between the applicant and the program. So any documentation that is uploaded will be directly uploaded to the portal to protect the privacy of that documentation. The next item here is how and where to apply. So the current website, which is lacountyrentrelief.com, is where you'll find the application. Right when you open that website, you'll see a button that says landlord application. You would click on that button. It'll then bring you to another portal that looks like this. Essentially, you will click here where it says register. You would enter your name and email address, and just please note that the email address you utilize will need to be a working email that you do monitor, because this is the email that you will use to sign into your application portal, where you can see the status of your application, and also where you would receive any correspondence from the program, it'll be sent directly to that email. So once you register, once you register, a code will be sent over to your email. You would plug in that code on the website, and then it creates your essentially like an account, and then you're able to go through the application. And then if there's any issues with that or technical issues, you can reach out to the program or the customer service center, which their phone number is listed on the website. Also on the website, if you are a tenant, there is a button that says tenant referral. Since this program is a landlord program, we encourage that any tenants that they click on the tenant referral. It'll then bring up a form where they can enter their landlord information, so that the program, we then get the landlord information and we will invite them to apply for the program. Okay. So next couple items here is the call center information. This is also listed on the website, but here is their phone number. The current hours right now are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Friday the 12th, which is this Friday, is when the application is scheduled to close. The call center will be open a little later in the evening, which will be until 10 p.m. Pacific time. And then once the application period closes, the customer service center will operate Monday through Friday, as well as hours being from 8 to 5. Okay. Couple of resources noted here for the program. First, as far as technical assistance, so we do have community-based partners that can or that will offer one-on-one support. These partners can walk you through the application process, understand any of the guidelines or further clarification is needed as you're doing the application. All of the partners are listed on the program's website. You'll see the name, phone numbers, emails where you can reach them directly. Again, they are here for you, for the applicants, to provide that support and assistance needed for the application at no cost. As mentioned earlier on the website, there is also a program and application guide. This is available in various languages. So once you're on the website, if you scroll down, you can see where it says program and application guide. This is also where you will see a full list of all of the documents that can be provided or for the application. And then lastly, on the website, we do have a frequently asked questions section where you'll see quite a few questions with its corresponding answers. So in the event you've got questions, please feel free to take a look there. Your question may be on the website. However, the customer service center as well as the partners are available should you have questions that are not on that FAQ section. Okay. So that concludes the overview of the program, the eligibility, examples of documentation, and so those resources. So I do see the chat going with quite a few questions, so we can get into that.
Thank you, Marina. I will start with the Q&A box, and then I'll move over to the chats. So the first question, excuse me, will this help with tenants who are non-cooperative, i.e. not providing documentation, or who have moved out since?
So for tenants that are non-cooperative, so the good thing with our partners is that they are also assisting for this type of scenario. So they can assist the landlord, but in the event that a tenant, for example, if the relationship happens to be strained, the community partners will also assist there and provide any assistance needed for the tenant part of this application. And then I believe the second part of that was if the tenant has moved out, one of the criteria is that the unit of which the application is being submitted for will still need to have the impacted tenant. So that in the event the tenant is no longer at the particular unit, then that unit would not be eligible for the program.
All right, next question. So are nonprofit organizations eligible but don't get prioritization? So I think just, are they eligible? And if they are, do they get prioritization or not?
So as far as nonprofits, so this is a landlord program, and it would need to be the owner of that particular rental unit. So in the event it's owned by, let's say, a corporation or a nonprofit or a different organization, it'll still need to tie back to the owner of that particular unit, since their documentation will be the one, will be the documentation that's reviewed for the program to determine eligibility.
Hi, Marina. It's Tanua. I'm joining to support today. Thanks so much for the presentation. And yes, in short, nonprofits are eligible for the program.
Thanks, Tanua. Next question. Where is the link to the website?
You can
Drop it in the chat.
Okay, and the question after that, I work for a management company. Why do I have to send my photo ID to apply for a tenant? I would not like to share private info, but can share that of the property owner.
In that case, then the property owner should apply, and the property management company can assist them with that application, but the property owner would then need to supply their ID accordingly. So if the property management company representative does not want to do that, they don't have to, but the owner would then have to do so.
Great, thank you. For veterans, we have the SSVF program, which can provide up to 10 months of rental arrears, but assistance must satisfy tenant debt. Otherwise, SSVF cannot provide assistance. We have been seeing significant increase in veteran households seeking assistance for 11+ months. Would this rental assistance program be able to be coupled with the SSVF? Example, SSVF pays up to the first 10 months, and this program pays the outstanding balance?
So there is no reason why this program cannot be coupled with any of the other programs out there. We would encourage those who are applying to ensure that there is not the double jeopardy or double dipping. So you just want to make sure that what you're applying for is not or has not already been covered by another entity, either in the month that you're covering or the activity or debt source or debt activity that you're looking to cover. So yes, it can be coupled with other programs. You just have to make sure that no other program is paying for the exact same item that you're saying you need support for from this program.
Next question. How does the program certify that the money provided to the landlords is used to pay past due rent of tenants in need?
So tenants will also receive notice regarding what the landlord was paid for, the amount, and what it should be covering. There is, beyond that, no additional guarantee, but having this information, if for some reason a tenant is asked to pay that same amount, they would have proof that the landlord received payment from this program for a specific amount for a specific time period.
Thanks. Just this attendee just wanted to confirm that the applications are closing this Friday?
Correct. January 12th, 2024.
This next attendee asked, can you confirm that any prior state payments will be deducted from current claim?
No. I'm not sure. I wish I could see that question. This program is not conferring with any other program, and the timing of this program is 2022, specifically starting in April 1 of 2022 is when this program is willing to look back to pay for. So if you receive funding from another source, it is up to you to determine what that covered, what period and how much, and then to apply for a different period and a different amount of the debt that had not been covered by another source. But we are not cross-referencing. It is the responsibility of the owner to have that information.
Thank you. Next question is there a suggestion or guidance for entering resident birthday or socials? This info is blocked out for us.
So the main it's the one head of household that really is the major information that we're looking for. So it's not necessary to include, even though you see it there, to include Social Security numbers or birth dates for other household members. You are welcome to put zeros in that section or ones. We really are looking for the head of household for the applicant that's applying.
Next question. What should we enter for landlord income as we are part of a large management company?
The landlord income is optional. So if the landlord does not want to enter income because of, it's complicated or there are several other owners that are involved, that is not required. The income component of this program, if we can verify it for the landlord, if we can verify it for the tenant, just adds a level of priority for your application, doesn't make you ineligible. So it is completely up to the landlord, optional if they'd like to include income. You can, place the zeros in there if there is no intent to add income information.
Thank you. Next question. What is the grant amount for assistance?
The maximum amount per unit is $30,000, but that it depends on if you have debt at that level for that unit, but that is the max per unit, and it must be substantiated by notice of information regarding what that outstanding debt is.
And as a follow-up question, there was a question in the chat kind of related to this. So is it a max of $30,000 for an owner with unpaid rent, or is it up to $30,000 for each tenant who is unable to pay?
Each unit. So that would be the tenant on the tenant side.
Great.
A landlord can receive more than $30,000 there because they could have multiple units that have $30,000 of debt. But for each particular unit, the maximum is $30,000.
And next question, I'm going to do this as a two-part because I've noticed some in the chat that kind of relate to this. Do you guys know if this will open up to the owners in the city of LA? And if not, or even if so, do you have any ideas of resources for landlords in the city of LA?
So at this time, we have no insight into whether the city of LA will reopen their program or not. So we cannot provide background on that. We'd encourage you to call the city of LA and any elected officials and partners there. And the second part of the question was?
If you have any idea of resources for the city of LA?
So the resources that are listed on the website for this program, several of which are also available to residents within the city of LA. So we would encourage people to look at the website, LACountyRentRelief.com, and take a look at the resources that are there. Those are open to all LA County residents.
Great. Next question. If you partially own, in parentheses, under 50%, over 4 units, would they still count as rental units?
I think I understand that question. So
it seems that they...
Oh, I see. If you partially own over with...
So they own
Yes.
over 4 units, but under 50, the ownership is under 50%.
The priority for the program was for, and it's not exclusive, so you can totally still qualify. You can still get resources if you own over 4 units. It's just a priority question. So yes, you still are an owner of, even if it's in part of another unit, and that unit is still count is in excess of 4. So yes, it would still be counted as a rental unit in terms of the total number of units that you own and have ownership stake in. So if you own more than 4, it does, at that point, you are not within the priority category of owning less than 4, but that doesn't make you ineligible. It just means that that's just one more category where you can't get all the points for having priority there.
Great. And then in regards to uploading the owner's ID, what if the owner is a limited partnership?
Then we're looking for one person who is authorized on behalf of the limited partnership to be able to provide an ID. If there's still some other concerns there, Marina, I think we have an email address. Let's see if we can identify an info at where we can take a question like that, but it should be one authorized representative.
Thank you. Another question, what if they don't have access to birthdays or socials at all?
Yeah, I'm not sure who they're referring to.
I think for the tenant application, for inputting on the tenant, if they don't have access to the birthday or the socials, social security information.
So the landlord does not need to complete the birthday and social for a tenant. The tenant should know their own birthday and social, and if you don't have a social, again, you can go ahead and include zeros in that section as a tenant.
Okay, next question. For a tenant applicant, what if you didn't have enough taxable income in the full previous calendar year to verify annual income? And conversely, this person has since been confirmed as experiencing socioeconomic hardship and thus determined eligible for the entirety of the time of tenancy. So would government mail documents for public assistance programs at the current address for public assistance programs like Medi-Cal, General Relief, EBT by the County of LA or the state be sufficient?
Yes. So the goal is to try and understand your income level, and if you've been verified by another government agency, all that was listed there, Medi-Cal, the SNAP program, other government assistance, your assistance letter, your official letter stating that you qualify and how much and what you qualify for can serve as your source of income.
If the tenant is still in the unit at the time of application, but moves out before disbursement of funds without paying, is the landlord still allowed to keep the funds?
So we just, the way we advise here is that when we reach out to the tenant to confirm tenancy, we do that one time. And once that is confirmed, then if the application is ready for payment, it will proceed to payment. We do not go back and verify if the tenant moved or not. That is, not that that's the end of the program's purview. We focus on ensuring at time of application that the tenant is in fact in the unit, and if that's the case, then the application continues to be viable.
Next question, can one of the partners assist with completing the application on behalf of the landlord? I would assume this would mean in the case of a limited partnership.
I was assuming that they were talking about one of our local partner organizations.
Oh, okay.
Who can assist the tenant sorry, assist the landlord with completing the application, and the answer is yes. We are able to, or you're able to reach out to one of the organizations and make an appointment and get connected with them, no matter if you are a landlord or even a tenant, but for a landlord for sure.
Next question. Are there LA County rent relief programs that directly assist the tenants instead of going through the landlord?
We are not aware of any programs at this time that are just for the tenant. So, continue to stay connected to the program to see when that might be the case. But at this time, this program, per the LA County supervisors, is starts with the landlord.
Next question. Is there something that the tenants have to do to comply with the landlord's application in order to receive monies for arrears?
The primary activity that the tenant should be doing is responding to our inquiry regarding their residency and where they're living. That is the main priority of the tenant, to do that, to confirm that they are in fact at the address. If the tenant is asked about their income and the application is being qualified for priority based on the tenant's income, the tenant does need to respond swiftly to our request for income verification.
Next question. What specific alterations should the landlord and or tenant provide in each of their respective application sections? Would prove best if the landlord and tenant live in the same property at the same address in the same home as the homeowner themselves?
That was quite complicated.
I can read. So what alterations should the landlord or tenant provide if they live in the same address?
So we have limits on the landlord application and the tenant application being at the same address. We really are specifically looking for those who have a separate address. But if there is if that is the case, and the landlord still wants to apply, they can do so. They should have all documentation that would be expected of a landlord-tenant relationship. So confirmation of a lease agreement and background on any payments that have been received accordingly.
Next question. Who is responsible for declaring any hypothetical award sum as taxable income? The landlord, the tenant, or both?
All tax questions we ask that each landlord consult their tax accountant. We are not providing tax advice. We understand that these funds could be taxable, and so the resources are going directly to the landlord. So it is the landlord's responsibility to confirm what taxes would need to be paid on those resources.
Next question. If the tenant doesn't comply, can we apply without their consent or request?
So if the tenant is not really applying, the tenant is responding to confirmation of their residency, the landlord should still apply, and the landlord's application can move forward accordingly. And we will make several attempts to reach out to the tenant to receive the tenant's response regarding their tenancy. If that is not able to be achieved, we are working on what some alternatives might be in order to continue with potential payment.
Great. Next question. Are there any protections to keep landlords from collecting the money and then continuing to evict the tenant?
The tenant will be aware if the landlord does receive resources for the purposes of covering a specific date, for covering a specific debt. they will be notified of that. And we are, very hopeful that a tenant does not have to take other steps to ensure that they remain housed, and that the landlord will accept that and ensure that the tenant is not evicted for the exact resources that the landlord has received.
Great. And then I'm going to the chat now. So there's a couple of questions about how long the process takes, and I think there's another one that is about how long it will take to see or how soon the funds will be distributed.
So we encourage all landlords to complete the application fully, to provide all backup documentation that is easily readable and complies with the program requirements. Depending on the number of applications that are received that meet all of the 4 priority levels, will determine who is paid first, or who has the opportunity to be paid first. At this time, as you know, the application will close on January 12th. After that time, there will be an analysis done of the overall application pool. Once we have that, we'll be able to better provide some updates on when we would expect payment. But we do anticipate it'll be several weeks, a few weeks after the portal has closed before any initial payments come in. As you can see, we want to make sure that the tenant has been responsive. So there's some details beyond what the landlord presents that would need to be considered.
Next question, can one owner submit 2 applications for both tenants who are sharing the unit?
And say one more time.
Can one owner submit 2 applications for both tenants who are sharing the unit?
Oh, I don't believe we have capacity for that.
And
So both of the, essentially, well, they can try and apply, but if it's one unit, there may not be an opportunity to split that unit into 2 if it doesn't have an actual post office unit number that is separate.
And as a follow-up to that question, there's another question kind of similar. It's asking if 2 different tenants are renting, sharing the same unit, but they have separate lease agreements. How would this apply when both underpaid different amounts during different time frames?
I would encourage you to apply, but that is, we had not, I don't believe the county has accommodated for splitting a single unit into more than one.
Next question, can sublessors also apply, or is it only for landlord and tenant directly?
We'd need more details on what the description of a sublessee is. So it's possible that a sublessee could be eligible for the program.
Next question, is there any scenario in which an award of funds requested would be dispersed to the landlord, but for an amount that is less than the sum listed on the application itself?
Yes.
If a tenant is in eviction for non-payment, can landlords submit invoices for legal fees incurred?
No.
How likely for a nonprofit corporation to see any of these funds?
Highly likely. If you have tenants who are located in LMI areas, you have tenants who are LMI themselves. If the total amount of the rent can be satisfied by $30,000 or less, that is 3 of the 4 priority areas. The 1 priority area a nonprofit owner may not fall into is owning less than 4 units. But the other 3, they could definitely be on the priority list for.
Next question. For those tenants that also owe utilities, do I request copies of their most recent bills?
So it should be the utilities that the owner has paid on behalf of the tenant. So the owner should have access to those utility documentation. But yes, that would need to be included and is an eligible item for reimbursement.
Thank you. Next question. If the landlord could not afford to keep the non-paying tenant in the unit after 6 months and had to proceed with eviction of the tenant in order to avoid foreclosure, would this landlord be eligible for any assistance?
If the tenant is no longer in the property, then the landlord is not eligible. If the tenant is still in the property, then the landlord is eligible.
Next question. If the tenant is not qualified and paid 25% of total rent due for 2022, 2023, what will be the action that the landlord can take in this case? Eviction or small claims or question mark?
But we are not here to provide advice on how a landlord should operate their business with a tenant. So that would best be shared with another, maybe public law agency that can assist with that kind of question.
Next question. When is the deadline for the residents to fill in their information after the landlord submit their information?
So it is possible, and we understand that on January 12th, the landlord may submit their application on that day. That application is still a valid application. We don't have a specific deadline today for when the tenant should complete their information, but we definitely would encourage the tenant to do so as soon as possible. But if the tenant does not get that done on January 12th, that is okay. That's still an active application, and we'd work towards encouraging the tenant to get that done shortly thereafter in the coming week.
Next question. Should the amount being requested also include any months in the future as well? Both past due, under, and unpaid months post 4/22 to present. And the next couple of months when the tenant has communicated, they'll not be able to pay for the next 2 full calendar months. So long story short, should they include any future months if the tenant has communicated that they will not be paying those future months?
Not at this time. The application does not allow for, nor we be able to pay for future months at this time.
The next question is, what is the timing of processing non-priority applications? When would the landlord know if this application was approved? And what is the timing from approval to payment, again, for non-priority applications?
I know there is interest in knowing exactly what the timing is. That really depends on the pool of applications and the priority applications that come in. I don't have any more details other than we will be updating the status of each application on a regular basis. So you'll see in the portal where you land in terms of priority for the program. And that is with the hope of giving you some indication about, how quickly you might be paid and or selected as part of the program.
Next question. Should tenants wait for the landlord to fully complete their application before registering Los Angeles County Rent Relief Program landlord referral website, or can they do so prior to any notice of landlord completion?
There is nothing that the tenant can do other than refer their landlord prior to a landlord completing an application. Once the landlord completes the application, then the tenant is asked to verify their residency. In the interim, as a tenant, the tenant can refer their landlord. So we have that referral form that's up, and that is tell us your landlord's name, number, email address, any information you have, so that we can also reach out to the landlord and encourage them to apply to the program.
The next question is, since there's one application per tenant, that means that the person submits and scans landlord verifications with with each tenant information?
I don't think I understand that question.
So as the landlord or the person on behalf of the landlord is applying for each tenant, each separate application, they have to then submit and scan those landlord verifications with each applications, correct?
Yes, yes, they do.
Let's see. How does one designate their application as being priority, or is that determined based on eligibility or geographical location and other determining criteria?
You don't, there is, so the applicant does not make that determination. That determination is made by current LA County priority considerations. Those that I mentioned are the 4 top priorities are the landlord owns less than 4 units, the landlord or the tenant are at 80% of the area median income, the geography of the location of the unit is within a high COVID index, high need area. And the final priority is that all of the debt that is owed or the debt that would keep someone housed is less than $30,000 and can be satisfied with this program. Those are the high, that gives you the highest priority if you can meet all of those conditions. However, even if you don't meet any of those conditions, you're encouraged to apply because we will continue to process applications beyond the high priority.
Thank you. We might have covered this, but just one more time. If the tenant does not have an email address or phone number, what should the landlord submitting do? This specifically tends to be the case with formerly unhoused residents.
So, you know, if that's the case, we may need to get in contact with a local partner. And even if the tenant does not have, we would encourage you to help the tenant set up an email address since those are free. And if they don't have either one of those, we would anticipate that the tenant is receiving mail to the address. And so it may be that we have to use receipt of mail to an address at a certain time period to confirm the residency of that tenant at that address.
Great, thank you. And we've had a couple people ask if there's any links to confirm if an address is eligible.
Yes. I believe, Marina, I don't know if it's both on the website and in the application. Go ahead and answer that.
Yep. It is also on the website where you can click on there and plug in your address.
So LACountyRentRelief.com, you can see that there is a link out to confirm if your address is in an eligible area.
Great. And then this question is asking if there's any more information on sublet help. So I would assume it's if their tenant has subletted, and if they on how to apply and the docs that they would need.
We'll update frequently asked questions regarding subleases.
Next question. If a resident owes rents prior to April 2022, does this mean we can't collect if we receive rental assistance?
No, that does not mean that. You can continue to collect on rent that was owed prior to April 2022.
And then we had someone who wanted to confirm that the process covers the months from the 22 months from April 1st, 2022 until the 1st of January 2024.
That's correct.
I'm just scanning right now to see if there's any questions that I don't think have been answered. Just so everyone, I know there's been some questions about recordings. Again, in case you missed it, the recording and the slides will be shared out after the session. I will be sending out an email, so that answers some of the leftover questions. Is there a PDF flyer of this information? Is that on your website?
So all of this information is on the website. I don't know that it's in PDF format. I take that back. We do have the program guides. Those are in PDF format, and they're also translated into 14 languages.
Great. And then we just got a question. Where can a landlord seek additional criteria information for their application should their tenant be renting rooms, bathrooms, a lease agreement by both parties for the entirety of the 4/22 to 1/24 term?
I think, let's see, this sounds like subletting. So we'll get some additional FAQs on that.
Great. And then someone asked if a W-9 would be considered proof of ownership.
No. There's a specific list of items that we have that confirm proof of ownership. We'll need to revisit that list.
All right, I'm looking again. I think we've answered pretty much all of the questions that we've received. Is there an income limit on a tenant applying for assistance?
There is no income limit for either a landlord or a tenant. If you are above the 80% of AMI for LA County, you just don't receive the full priority points for that particular area, but that doesn't make you ineligible for the program.
Great, thank you. I think we've pretty much answered all of the questions. Oh, someone just came in with one. Can you please confirm the sections in which a landlord can leave blank?
If you do not want to provide your income.
And then also someone just asked, can we enter January 2024 rent that hasn't been received into the application after it's already been submitted?
We don't have an update on that at the moment, but stay tuned to see if we are able to open up January for those who have already submitted their application.
Great. Oh, can you explain what a W-9 is with regards to landlords?
We are not here providing advice on tax documents, what they are, how they're used, and their impact on property landowners or property management companies. We'd encourage you to check with your tax accountant.
All right. Thank you, Tanua and Marina, for that very informative presentation. As mentioned again, this will be shared out to all of the registered attendees. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.